Hi there, I'm Jennifer Stewart.
And I'm Catherine Clark, and we're so glad that you're joining us today for The Honest Talk.
We're excited to be bringing you conversations with some of North America's most inspiring women, and we are thrilled to be partnering with RBC as we do so.
This podcast is about leaving behind the talking points and diving into the real, authentic, and unique personal stories of our guests. Stories which we hope might influence or inspire your own journeys.
So let's get right to it.
So, Jen, when I was younger, I spent hours of my life reading Vogue and W Magazine and Women's Wear Daily and watching fashion television, where Jeanne Beker took us all behind the scenes of major fashion shows and into designer showrooms and gave us one-on-one conversations with the most famous people in the fashion industry. And also, of course, the stars who sat in the front rows and wore the clothes. Jeanne was literally a window into that whole world for me and for so many other people.
Me too. I grew up watching Jeanne. She was the fashionista of my life, and now she's released a brand new book, Heart on My Sleeve, which takes a look at her personal life stories through the clothes and accessories in her closet. We all wish we could be in your closet, Jeanne. And she's joining us for a chat about her totally unique and fascinating life. Jeanne Beker, it's so great to have you with us today. Welcome to The Honest Talk.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. Anybody that calls themselves honest is in my book. So
we love it.
This podcast, I wanted to be on it.
We love it. We try our best. Jeanne, congrats on the new book, which you agreed to write during COVID and right after battling breast cancer. Obviously a really tough time personally and just globally. What kind of emotions were you battling personally as you wrote this book?
Well, for me, writing has always been my happy place. So whatever I might have been battling, I mean, in terms of, the uncertainty of my situation or any kind of fear, although fear is something I really try to, put on the table and just leave it out there, because I think that's our biggest enemy. And anytime that we're, overrun with feelings of fear, we really are paralyzed. So, but I think a lot of it for me was just plunging into my past in a most joyful way, feelings of gratitude. I can't even believe myself that I've had the chance to lead such an extraordinary life. I mean, I pinch myself sometimes. It does all feel like a dream. But when you're really concentrating, on the moment and taking yourself back and trying to remember every beat that you felt or things that people said or what the scene looked like, because you really want to be as honest as you can in your recounting of those episodes and those special situations and experiences. It's a very therapeutic thing. It's a very healing thing. It's a very joyful thing, really, because I was transported. I mean, if I was writing about what happened to me at Karl Lagerfeld's Chanel atelier on the eve of the couture show. And, all of a sudden I was right back there, just really feeling those feelings. And that's just precious. I mean, when you really can recapture those memories and then share them with others, what a fantastic feeling. It really was a very, very joyful, easy experience for me. And it came along at just the right time. As you said, I was just still really in the throes of my cancer journey, and certainly still, coming out of the pandemic.
You had such a varied career before fashion television. And I loved reading also about what you'd studied. You studied acting in New York. You studied mime in Paris. I mean, that's not a career path you hear about every day. But you covered the arts. You hosted a music show. How did you end up at fashion television, which became this kind of defining element of your life, but also such an important part of the lives of so many other people?
Well, I was never a big fashion expert in that way. I was a great fan of fashion and grew up absolutely loving it. My mom was a kind of fashionista herself, not that she ever had the funds to spend on designer fare, but she made a lot of her clothes or had them made, and she made all of our clothes for my sister and myself. It was a great joy having a mother that was that crafty and that aware of fashion in a way. And really, she instilled in us a great love of fashion. Of course, growing up in the 60s, you were going to love it. I ended up, at City TV in 1979, hosting a show called The New Music, which was the forerunner of music television. Really, MTV was not even in existence when we started that show. So I got to do a lot of trailblazing. And, I sort of landed a job at City TV because I got into it through radio, and I got into radio as a mime artist. I mean, that's a whole other long story that you might be able to glean something about that from my book. But once I started working in the trenches of the music world, it was wonderful and I loved it, and it was fabulous. But after about 6 years of doing that, and we launched Much Music as well, and that was really exciting. But I'm sort of looking for the next big thing. And there was a young producer who was working in the promos department at City TV by the name of Jay Levine that very much wanted to create a fashion video show, almost like a music video show, but it would be fashion videos. And he wanted to have some hot young model host it, as a fashion VJ. But when I caught wind of this, I was looking for the next big thing because I thought, I started growing a little weary of that rock and roll scene. Music wasn't really going where I wanted it to go in the mid 80s. And I just was looking for the next big thing. When I heard that there was a pilot in the works for a show of that nature, I just kicked and screamed and demanded that they give me a chance to host it. And they were like, well, we don't know if you're really right for it. We don't want a lot of talking heads. It's just going to be a sexy show about fashion. And I said, whatever it is, I'll do it. And, I was hoping that they would want to do interviews with designers and do for fashion what we did for music, essentially, really kind of demystify it a little bit and unearth some of these incredible characters on the scene. So anyway, I ended up hosting the pilot for them. I don't know if they really, really were keen on me doing it, but I think they figured I paid my dues. I was such a hard worker and they let me do it. And it was a success right off the bat, but they said, yeah, we should probably be doing more interviews. And so then next thing I knew, they were sending me to New York to interview Bob Mackie and Betsy Johnson. And I really, got my feet wet doing that. And it was just the most fabulous, joyful experience. The fashion scene was really bubbling up in those days. It hadn't been overexposed the way it kind of is now. And we got to cover fashion during this golden age. I saw that really from the mid 80s to about 2012 when the show was canceled. That was an incredible 27-year period of covering this scene that was just so magical. And we were syndicated in 130 different countries. So our access was extraordinary too. It was before 1 million bloggers were on the scene and all these influencers. And, now it's just such a common thing. But we were the ones back then with that special backstage pass, with that incredibly rare access. And we just lapped it up.
You were the original influencer, and I've got so many fashion questions, but you said something that I kind of want to unpack that we hear in a lot of interviews with women. You said that they were looking for a certain type of host, but you kicked down the door and you self-advocated. So many women, Jeanne, are afraid to self-advocate or don't, and then they wait for opportunities. Like, who instilled that, like, I'm going to kick down the door and this is my opportunity and I'm going to try to get it? Who instilled that in you? Because that's a really special characteristic.
Well, without question, my parents were hugely responsible, for who I am. They certainly taught me the meaning of survival. They're Holocaust survivors, and their lives were really, totally rocked during the war. They lost their entire families. They were on the run from the Nazis the whole time. I mean, the stories that they told me growing up were just incredible to me. But I didn't like hearing them when I was a kid. But now I'm so thankful that they told them to me and that I heard them, because they made me who I was. And my father's motto, and what he said was the thing that always got him through the war, was don't be afraid and never give up. And as long as you're fearless and tenacious, you can really do just about anything. You've just got to really, hang in there, and you got to hang tough, and you just can't be intimidated and afraid. So I always had that kind of edge to me, that kind of, we call it in Yiddish, chutzpah. It's kind of a nerve, and, balls, if you will. And I think that's something that really helped me. Honestly, in retrospect, I wish I had been more that way. I wish I had even, when I was going through the early stages of my career, people would look at me and go, "Oh, that Jeannie's so pushy," and that, I don't think I ever would have achieved what I achieved if I would have just sat back and thought, okay, let's see what life has in store for me. I mean, I was going to make my life as fabulous as it possibly could be. I didn't want to just have a good life or even a great life. I wanted to have a freaking fantastic life. And I was determined to do that really on behalf of my parents, whose, their youth was like nipped in the bud. They couldn't realize so many of their dreams. And I thought, wow, well, what excuse do I have? I'm in this great country and all these opportunities, and I'm just going to go for it. So yeah, I wish I would have, done that even more, because I always think, no, if I could have gone further, I could have got, I look back at my life now and think, okay, well, that was a nice success, but was I as successful as did I do every single thing that I ever really dreamed that I wanted to do? Maybe not so much, but anyway, life's a bit of a compromise, as I'm sure and sometimes we do give up on certain things, but not on those things that essentially, feed our spirits.
I think a lot of women worry about being too pushy, though, right? They worry in their careers that people won't like them, or they'll get a reputation. And you're saying, forget about that.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Ruin.
I mean, totally. I feel like, I've got something in the other room that I almost feel like showing you that was, I think it was probably in the late 80s or maybe very early 90s. There was a magazine called Toronto Life, and they had to sing the 10 pushiest people in Toronto. And I was on the cover. I've got I bought that in my office, like the cover of this magazine with me just, being pushy. I could sat me on the backs of these two brothers. They were like twin bodybuilders or something. And I was just a humble, talky expression. And people thought I was, maybe a little pushy. Like, yeah, okay. Now, I'm not saying if you're pushy, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to step on people's toes. It doesn't mean that you're going to really shove people out of your way or anything like that. But you have to have a focus, and you have to be committed. And you really have to have that vision for yourself, and be willing to just go. And it's keep your eye on the prize, that whole philosophy. I don't think it necessarily means, if you're pushy, it means you're going to knock people out of the way or step on people or be mean to people or whack them down. No, that's not what it means at all.
And I have a theory that women are called pushy when it doesn't mean we don't care, but we've let go of what we care what other people think of us. Because then we're advocating for what we want, as opposed to through the filter of what's my mom going to think? What are my friends going to think? And then pushy is actually kind of a badge of honor, because you're asking for what you want. You're putting it out there. You're not giving two hoots about what others think, which is really, so we would love to get a copy of that and share it with this podcast, that Ottawa Life cover, Toronto Life cover, because that's awesome.
Oh, do you want me to go get it right now?
You can send it to us after or at the end. Let's get it, and we'll put it on the screen, and we'll screenshot it, and
we'd love it.
You should wear it as a badge of honor. So Jeannie, you have literally talked to everyone, and I think people are so intrigued by your life because they kind of want to pull the curtain back and be part of those conversations, because they're with really impactful, inspiring, successful people in the fashion world. Who are your top 2 favorite people to? Sorry. We love it.
There were so many incredible interviews and so many great people.
Yeah.
So many people that I loved so much. I mean, I guess, if you think people that I have special relationships with, oh boy, well, certainly from the world of music. I mean, and this is someone that I didn't even write about in the book, Frank Zappa. Very strange, right? Because he could be really kind of mean and snarky, just such a brilliant genius and so irreverent. But I had this relationship with him where he was this kind of avuncular character. He actually used to give me career advice every time he came to Toronto. I interviewed him. He was incredible, a total genius and the nicest guy. I mean, there's a documentary called Eat That Question that features a lot of me in it interviewing him.
Yeah.
So we had this very special relationship. But and Paul McCartney, of course, like wow, I grew up with a big poster of him over my bed. I mean, this is a guy I was just devoted to. I, would have loved to marry him at the age when I was 12 years old and a big Beatlemaniac. But when I finally did get to meet him, and then I actually interviewed him subsequently many times because his daughter Stella is a great designer, and I would see him backstage at her shows all the time. He was just the nicest, down to earth. When your heroes don't disappoint you, like wow, what that is. So he's incredible and just so unpretentious and so real and so kind, generous of spirit. Karl Lagerfeld, wow. Like he was like my mentor. He was always about, looking forward. He didn't almost want to talk about what he had just sent down the runway. He wanted to talk about what he was going to design tomorrow in his next collection. And that was very inspiring to me. I just absolutely loved him. Again, someone who was very irreverent and could be a little difficult and say things that were pretty outrageous. But having a conversation with him was like, you're playing a tennis match, or he'd lob these balls at you and you had to come right back with something. And I think he always appreciated my enthusiasm and that I didn't ask the conventional, typical, fashion editor questions. And then, of course, the late, great Alexander McQueen. I had a great relationship with him. And again, someone who was very irreverent, someone who could be very difficult, someone who was, no question, a genius, who really just taught me a lot about the kind of maybe pain and suffering that an artist often has to go through in order to get their vision out there. He was just a brilliant soul, truly a poet, and I absolutely adored him as well. So, I mean, I could go on and on. So many that I wrote about in Heart on My Sleeve as well. Like the late, great Oscar de la Renta, another sage, gorgeous human being. So many.
Who gave you a hard time?
Oh, God. Iggy Pop, I'll say right off the bat, number one. And you know what? Probably the only one. I have to say, no, I haven't really been given, it gives you
Okay, so we'll cross him right off of our list then.
Yeah,
so he was the only one who gave you a really hard time then.
Yeah, you can read all about him. You can Google that. Iggy Pop dissed me on, the new music. You could watch it on YouTube, and actually I'm very proud of myself that I walked out of that interview, the only interview in my entire career. And I started interviewing people for CBC Radio back in 1975. So, and until this day, and I'm still actively interviewing people, I've never shut down an interview. I did it with him. He was a very not nice person at that time. I mean, maybe he's nice now, but no, I think the mean people sometimes in the business, or maybe because they have to be mean in order to protect their clients, are the PR people. It's not so much the big celebrities, but it's the people that are trying to keep, you from them. So I've been shut down sometimes and given a hard time by certain people, that were publicists or PR people, but the actual, luminaries themselves have always been quite fabulous to talk to and to get up close and personal with.
That's pretty neat. How has your perspective on fashion changed with social media and influencers? And, it's at the tip of your fingertips. You can go on Pinterest and you can create an outfit. I can go watch Erica on Instagram today, and she does a fabulous job. Like, how have you seen it evolve, and what do you think of where it is today?
I mean, listen, there always will be incredibly creative people in that field, and there are, and some people are more inspiring than others. There's a lot of repetition going on. There's a lot of the same. I'm not really seeing as much innovation as I would have expected to see by now. I've been covering fashion since the mid 80s. There have been some innovation in terms of, sustainability efforts and fabrications. We're making, material out of recycled water bottles. That kind of thing is very exciting. But I really don't see boundaries being pushed enough. Maybe maybe we've gone as far as we can go. I, you know,
Yeah.
I thought it would have gone further. So I think
Yeah.
some of it gets a little boring to me because I have,
Yeah. You've
I
seen
don't
it.
want to sound jaded because I still appreciate the artisanal work that, you know, comes out of these ateliers for the couture, just like, you know, mind popping. I mean, there's a great artistry involved. There's no question. But the fact that it's so out there and there's just, it's almost like too much, much too
Yeah.
much, too many labels, too much fashion, too, you know, I feel in a way a bit responsible. We popularized it to a certain degree, and everyone wanted to jump on that fashion bandwagon and become a designer and create a label. And, you know, and it's just like, do we really need that much
Mm.
fashion? I mean, we do, we need fashion and we love fashion, but it's like, it's become
Quality.
so common. And the fact that, you know, it's, you can see it here, you know, you can see it on
Yeah.
your phone. It's not like you know, like you say, you can Instagram. Okay, you're a fashion expert. Well, that's nice.
Right.
I don't know. And for me, honestly, yes, I know. Okay, I was a fashion journalist. I mean, I edited a fashion magazine for many years and wrote for myriad publications and newspapers and magazines. And honestly, I considered myself an entertainment reporter first and foremost. I was into covering it not because of, you know, the hemlines and the silhouettes and the changing shades of the season. I mean, I didn't really care that much about that, and I still really don't. Even though you know, I am a fashion editor at TSC, you know, the shopping channel, and I do my show Style Matters, and I absolutely love it because I love fashion, and I think it has great transformational possibilities and it's a feel good thing. But that being said, I'm much more excited by, you know, the characters in fashion, or was, you know, the
Yeah.
designers, and the designers were like rock stars. It's not like that really anymore. I mean, they have these big illustrious old houses and they just, you know, it's like a revolving door to bringing the young designers in, and they work there for a few years and then they kick them out and they try someone new. And it's like, you know, it's very hard for a designer to really make a name for himself or herself at this point, and really just be known for a signature style. So anyway, that yeah, I think fashion ain't what it used to be. That's for sure. And fashion journalism sure ain't what it used to be. And it's just a different world. But of course it would be. I mean, we've gone through so many decades of it. I feel sorry for a lot of the kids today who are real fashionistas and who love it so much and are so passionate about that they couldn't have come back to those old days with me. I would have loved to take each and every one of them by the hand and show them what that magical scene was like back then, because it was just so extraordinary.
You're right about the fact that it was pretty much like the golden age of fashion. I mean, it was a real focus, and you were able to create a very special place for a lot of people. I've always said that getting older is a gift because it's not guaranteed to everyone, and it's also not for the faint of heart. You have had some challenges. We talked off the top about the cancer diagnosis that you had during COVID, and Jen and I are both really happy that you're cancer free and doing great. But I'd be interested to hear what you've learned about yourself, both in terms of being a woman, especially in a society, Jen and I see and feel it all the time, which still values youth above all else. What have you learned about yourself in terms of where you're at this stage of your life, and what lessons do you want to help other women take out of your experience?
Well, first of all, I just to stop you for a second, I don't think that our society values youth above all that else anymore. I mean,
Interesting.
I think it did for a long time, superficially anyway, before people really started to think about it. And I find that, you know, yes, is there ageism? You know, yeah, but it's certainly uh, getting a lot better. It's gotten a lot better. The fact that I'm, you know, I'm living proof. I'm 72 years old and still very gainfully employed with so many new projects and wonderful things on the horizon. You know, I mean, I'm very blessed, but I do continue to dance as fast as I can.
Yeah.
And I'm, you know, I guess that's the joy in working as hard as you choose to throughout your life. And then you do have, you know, you have something there. I mean, you make this investment in yourself and your career, and you reap the rewards as you age. I think people respect older people more than they did. I'm not saying it's totally a fact for everybody, but I think there's so many life lessons that we have now. I mean, of course, going through what I went through, I mean, I just learned so much about humanity through, of course, my work and my career. But when I started having these health challenges, realizing that, I'm tougher than I thought I was.
Mhm.
Although I always sort of proclaimed to be, pretty tough. I didn't realize how tough I could be until, I was faced with that scary
Yeah.
diagnosis. And I've learned that people are a lot more compassionate than I gave them credit for. I mean, the people that reached out to me during the course of my cancer journey, they were the wind beneath my wings. All the, social media was such a blessing, at that time, and still is, and my followers bring me so much comfort, and people are just so nice. The whole
Mhm.
thing just really restored my faith in humanity in a way.
Yeah.
And I think we just have to, we can't feel sorry for ourselves. And certainly, as you pointed out, you don't want to feel sorry for yourself. As you get older,
No.
you're happy for yourself that you're getting older. So, but I think there are some people that just sort of start to retreat, and they say, they start to feel,
Yeah.
say they're invisible. I can't, okay, well, I've had a very public career and I'm in the public eye, so I can't say that I can feel what they're
Yeah.
going through. But I don't think if you want to become active in your community, you don't have to have a fabulous, glitzy career. You just have to want to get out there and connect with people and
Mhm.
mean something to other people and find meaning in your life, and not just, like
Yeah.
around and, I don't know. Oh, if you want to sit around, that's fine
You
too.
do you.
But
Yeah.
if you're out there really trying to connect and
Mm-hmm.
making connections and meet, whatever it is, whatever, volunteer work that you might want to do, or there's just so many great things that people can do for each other. So many, that I just really wonder about people that say, yeah, like you're over after a certain age and you become invisible and nobody cares anymore. And, like, I don't think it has to be like that at all. I think there's so much that we have to share.
Okay, last question. If you could go back and give young Jeanne Beker, who's kicking down the door at fashion television to host the show, a piece of advice or a reflection or a perspective, what would that be?
Kick harder. Like I said, I could have kicked a little harder. Maybe I should have.
Yeah.
And I think maybe to have even more faith that I always had. I always believed that was, important, that you had to believe in higher powers and you had to believe in something that would just keep you going. Keep, because during, very dark days in my life, during my marriage breakup, when I just felt like, oh, I couldn't go on, I wish I would have realized that no, if you're just true to yourself and you hang in there, somehow, your prayers will be answered and the universe will help
Yeah.
you. I mean, I go through it even now. I mean, there are days I think, oh, what's going to happen? And I worry about my kids and I worry about, how things are going to turn out. But, I just have to always remember to have faith, and everyone I think needs to hear that and remind themselves that there are higher powers at play, and you just have to maybe take yourself a little more lightly and believe. I think that's really important. I mean, it's all very well to dream about stuff, but if you don't believe, none of your dreams are going to come true anyway. So dream and believe, don't be afraid, and never give up.
That's a fabulous, optimistic, and inspiring way to end this conversation, Jeanne. What a fun time to have the chance to chat with you today. Thank you. Thank you for your time, but also thank you for opening up a whole new world for so many of us when now we had the chance to really to live vicariously through your own experiences and in the fashion industry. So thank you. Great to chat.
Thank you so much. That was so much fun. Take good care.
Well, that's a wrap. And to our listeners across Canada and around the world, we thank you for joining us.
You can hear The Honest Talk on iTunes, Spotify, and Simplecast, brought to you by RBC. You can also get more information on stories that matter to you at our website, thehonesttalk.ca, and sign up for our weekly newsletter where you'll get fabulous stories delivered right to your inbox.
But for now, thank you for being a part of today's podcast. Stay tuned for more great conversations and stay well.